Part 1. The Modern Master Chef and the Fatal Noodles. Chef Lin Yuan was a culinary legend, celebrated across the modern world as the finest master baker and culinary genius of his generation. His pastries were works of art, his dishes masterpieces. Yet, behind the glittering awards and Michelin stars, Yuan was an exhausted perfectionist who lived on convenience. After spending 18 grueling hours in his commercial kitchen crafting tiered wedding cakes and delicate soufflés, Yuan dragged his tired bones back to his penthouse apartment. He stared at his state-of-the-art kitchen, sighed with pure exhaustion, and muttered, "I am entirely too tired to cook for myself tonight." Instead of preparing a gourmet meal, he reached into his pantry and grabbed a cheap, dusty packet of instant spicy noodles. 5 minutes later, he slurped down a massive mouthful while scrolling on his phone. Disaster struck in an instant. A stray noodle blocked his windpipe. He choked, gasped for air, and dropped his chopsticks. With a final, ironic thought, I spent my life feeding royalty only to be defeated by instant noodles. Everything faded to absolute black. Part 2. Rebirth, Family, and Sweet Beginnings. Gasping for breath, Lin Yuan bolted upright. But the sleek walls of his penthouse were gone. Instead, he stared at cracked wooden beams, a leaking thatched roof, and the faint scent of old dust. "Yuan, you're awake." A warm, weathered hand gripped his shoulder. A gentle woman with tear-filled eyes smiled down at him. His new mother, Chen Shi. Beside her stood a rugged, tired man with calloused hands, his father, who let out a heavy sigh of relief, and a skinny 12-year-old girl clutching the edge of his blanket, sniffing back tears. This poor, broken household was his new family. In his past life, Yuan had been an orphan who knew nothing but cold kitchens and loneliness. But looking into their worried eyes, a fierce warmth ignited in his chest. In this life, Yuan vowed, "I will cherish you all." Realizing their desperate financial state, Yuan wasted no time. He limped into their dilapidated kitchen. With expert hands, he transformed cheap, rough local flour, wild honey, and foraged mountain berries into golden, flaky pastries that melted on the tongue. When he opened their tiny village bakery window the next morning, the aroma drew an immediate crowd. Customers took one bite of his heavenly biscuits and exquisite mooncakes, and the shop instantly exploded with demand. Part 3. Flavors of Fame and Sisterly Smiles. Yuan's small shop was just the beginning. To pull his family out of poverty, he knew he had to conquer the culinary scene dish by dish. Working from dawn until dusk, he meticulously perfected every recipe. He introduced buttery, golden biscuits that crumbled delightfully in the mouth, and rich, decadent moonlight cakes stamped with delicate floral designs that became the talk of the province. But Yuan didn't stop at sweets. Remembering his modern roots, he whipped up a secret blend of fiery chili oils and spices, introducing tongue-tingling spicy street dishes that had local food lovers addicted. Word spread like wildfire. Soon, travelers from neighboring cities lined up for hours just to catch a glimpse of his stall. Despite the overwhelming success and growing piles of silver coins, Yuan never lost sight of what mattered most. Every evening, after locking up the bakery, he would sit by the hearth with his 12-year-old sister, Xiaomei. With a gentle smile, he would slide a warm, freshly glazed honey pastry across the table just for her. "Eat up, little one," he would whisper, smoothing down her hair. He made sure she wore soft, clean dresses and had proper books to read. Seeing Xiaomei's bright, toothy grin and hearing her carefree laughter melted away all his exhaustion. For the first time, Yuan felt truly wealthy. Part 4. The Cold Duke's Weakness. As Yuan's business expanded into 4 thriving new branches across the country, his fame finally reached the imperial capital. And with it came the most feared man in the realm, Duke Longchen. Known for his ruthless demeanor on the battlefield and an icy expression that could freeze a room, the Duke rarely stepped foot in public markets. Yet, one rainy afternoon, the imposing figure slipped quietly into Yuan's busiest shop, drawing nervous, hushed gasps from the crowd. Yuan, wiping flour from his hands, simply offered a bright, welcoming smile. Unfazed by the chilling aura, Yuan handed the Duke a freshly baked, golden butter cookie. "On the house, Your Grace. It pairs well with bitter tea." To the utter shock of his guards, the fearsome Duke took a bite. The rich, buttery crunch melted instantly on his tongue. A subtle, rare warmth flickered in the Duke's dark eyes. From that day on, the Duke became a regular. He would sit quietly in the corner, watching Yuan knead batches of fluffy butterbread dough. And every single time Yuan tossed a warm, playful joke his way while dusting flour from his apron, a genuine, soft smile. Part 5. Secrets Unveiled and Unfazed Hearts. As the weeks passed, the bakery grew quiet after the evening rush. The flickering candlelight cast a warm glow across the wooden counters as Yuan kneaded a fresh mound of dough. Duke Longshun lingered behind, his tall frame leaning against the doorframe, watching every graceful movement of Yuan's hands. "You spend hours here every single day," the Duke murmured, his deep voice carrying a rare gentleness. "For a common baker, your hands possess the dexterity of an artist. Who taught you?" Yuan paused, flashing a bright, teasing grin over his shoulder. "Trade secret, Your Grace. If I told you, I'd have to make you pay double for your butterbread." A low, rich chuckle rumbled in the Duke's chest, a sound his personal guards had never heard in their lives. Just then, a terrified local merchant rushed into the shop, dropping to his knees and trembling. Please forgive this humble servant, Your Grace." This one didn't realize it was the Grand Duke of the Northern Province sitting in such a humble shop. Yuan stopped kneading, wiping the flour from his hands as he blinked in surprise. The Grand Duke? The most powerful, terrifying warlord in the entire country had been sitting in his bakery eating cookies for weeks? Instead of cowering in fear like the merchant, Yuan simply let out a bright laugh. He walked right up to the imposing noble, handing him a warm pastry. "Well, Duke Longshun or not, in this shop, you're just my favorite regular customer. Now eat your cookie and stop scaring my guests." The Duke stared at him, stunned, before his heart completely melted. Part 6. Lanterns and Shared Heartbeats. The annual Mid-Autumn Festival lit up the capital with thousands of glowing red lanterns and bustling night markets. For the first time in his new life, Yuan closed his bakery early, walking hand in hand with his little sister, Xiaomei, while taking in the festive sights. But tonight, he wasn't alone. Duke Longshun materialized out of the lively crowd, clad in dark silk robes that somehow made him look even more striking. Instead of his usual imposing guards trailing closely behind, he kept them at a distance, wanting a rare moment of peace. When Xiaomei eagerly ran off toward a stall selling sugar candy figurines, Yuan found himself standing shoulder to shoulder with the formidable Duke under the soft glow of paper lanterns. "You look different outside the bakery apron," the Duke softly remarked, his dark eyes softening as he gazed down at Yuan. Yuan smiled, the cool night breeze catching his hair. "And you look a lot less terrifying when you aren't glaring at ledgers. Come on, let's walk." As they strolled together through the crowded streets, the Duke slowly reached out, his warm fingers brushing against Yuan's hand before sliding into a gentle, secure grip. Yuan's heart skipped a beat, a sweet warmth blooming in his chest that rivaled any dessert he had ever baked. Surrounded by festive cheers, the cold Duke looked at him with an ocean of unspoken devotion, and Yuan realized this quiet, steady love was the sweetest prize of all. Part 7. Rare Gifts and Patient Devotion. After the festival, the deliveries to Yuan's flagship bakery changed drastically. Gone were the simple daily visits. Instead, majestic carriages pulled up at dawn, unloaded by royal attendants who treated the common storefront like a palace treasury. Every morning, Yuan unwrapped a new marvel. One day it was a bolt of rare, shimmering moonlight silk from the northern provinces, perfect for new robes. The next, it was a chest of pristine white jade flour grinders and exotic spices imported from across the sea, treasures that ordinary chefs could only dream of touching. Yet, despite his immense wealth and status, Duke Longshun never demanded an immediate answer to his unvoiced affections. He knew Yuan's heart was deeply tied to his family, his growing bakery empire, and his newfound independence. Instead of pressuring him, the Duke practiced endless patience. He would quietly sit in the corner of the bustling shop, sipping bitter tea, while watching Yuan manage his 4 booming branches with effortless grace. Whenever Yuan caught his eye through the flour-dusted air, the Duke would offer a gentle, unwavering nod, a silent promise that he would wait as long as it took. Touched by this deep, respectful devotion, Yuan felt the last walls around his modern, guarded heart completely crumble. The most formidable predator in the realm was willingly laying his entire empire at a baker's feet, asking for nothing in return except a place by his side. Part 8. Moonlight Kisses and Instant Noodles. Late one evening, after the bakery ovens cooled and the city fell quiet, Duke Lin led Yuan to a hidden palace balcony draped in blooming night-cereus flowers. Below them, the silver river reflected the sprawling city lights, glowing like spilled sugar under the harvest moon. The Duke gently cupped Yuan's face, his dark eyes burning with fierce, absolute devotion. "My heart has belonged to you since the first day you handed me a butter cookie," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. When their lips finally met, it was tender and breathtaking, a sweet, lingering promise to walk through lifetimes together. As Yuan kissed him back, a sudden, utterly ridiculous thought popped into his head. He pulled back slightly, a mischievous grin twitching at the corners of his lips as he looked up at the fearsome warlord who now held the entire realm in his hands. Yuan let out a soft chuckle and whispered to himself, "Who would have thought? In my past life, I was too lazy to cook, choked on cheap instant spicy noodles, and died like an absolute idiot. And now, because of that single, glorious laziness, I get reborn in ancient times, become a wealthy baking tycoon, and bag the hottest, most powerful sugar daddy in the entire empire." Yuan shook his head, leaning back into the Duke's warm, safe embrace. Note to self: sometimes, being lazy really does pay off in the most delicious ways possible. Finale, sweetest ever after. Years passed, and the humble village baker had built an empire of flavors that spanned the entire continent. But the grandest creation of all wasn't his famous moonlight cakes or his spicy street delicacies. It was the warm, laughter-filled home he shared with his husband. As an omega blessed with rare fortune, and the fierce, protective alpha duke by his side, Yuan's life blossomed beyond his wildest dreams. Their 4 bakery branches ran smoothly, managed by trusted hands, leaving plenty of time for what truly mattered. On a sunlit autumn afternoon, the grand courtyard echoed with the sound of tiny, excited footsteps. A little girl with bright, curious eyes and a flour-dusted nose toddled into the kitchen, holding up a lopsided, horribly shaped biscuit. "Papa, Daddy, look, I made a moon cookie for you." Yuan laughed brightly, dropping to his knees to scoop their lovely daughter into his arms. Duke Lin stepped up beside them, a soft, indulgent smile gracing his handsome face as he wrapped his arms around both of them, kissing the top of his daughter's head and pressing a tender kiss to Yuan's cheek. Looking at his adoring husband, his sweet little sister who was now happily grown, and their precious daughter, Yuan smiled up at the sky. He had traded modern Michelin stars and lonely penthouse kitchens for ancient warmth, endless family love, and a husband who treated him like absolute royalty. Life was warm, the baking pans were full, and his heart had never been sweeter.